Hello, this is the LEGO Ninjago Ninja Ultra Combo Mech, new for 2022. When I first saw pictures of this thing, I really liked it, and I saw more pictures, I really liked it, but seeing it in person, I think I like it even more. Now, this is an unsponsored and unscripted review. It's just going to be my honest thoughts off the cuff. In addition to the main mech, this set comes with, I'm going to call it 6.5 figures, technically, maybe 7. I'm going to call it 6.5 because one of them is just a Woobot, and there's also a flyer for the bad guys off to the side. I'll go ahead and show you what this looks like fully built up. Now, you will not, at least as far as I understand it, you will not find or see this mech in this form in the actual TV series at any point. The entire series that we're on right now for 2022, the beginning of 2022, is kind of an in-between thing where LEGO designers, physical product designers, have been given a little more free reign to come up with their own things and to not have to synchronize with the designs for the TV show, which they don't have a new series out for right now. And I'm okay with that, but it's important to have that context. The designer of this set is a big fan of the Japanese series Gurren Lagann, and apologies if I did not pronounce that correctly. I haven't followed the series myself, but I have looked at source material that very much represents the inspirations for this. There are some other series that you can see inspiration from as well, but specifically the designer has come out and said, yes, I am a big fan of this in particular, and I do tend to put stuff from this series into the builds that I make, the mech builds especially. And so you may see some things that are familiar here, but most importantly, this is a pretty playable and yet pretty stable and decent looking on display LEGO set. The target age range here is 9+, so it's not from the lowest end stuff, but it's also not the highest end stuff. It's not intended to be for collectors, but I think that this looks good enough to be appreciated by collectors, and again, it does have enough playability for kids to get hands-on with it and use it as a big ol' action figure, essentially. And I mean, this does have an additional major feature that I hope you will stick around to see that surprised me. I definitely did not expect it at first when I saw the initial pictures for this, but once I saw the second set of pictures, I was like, oh yeah, okay, yep, sold. In terms of articulation and playability, well, first of all, I mean, you can just kind of grab the thing around the hips. There are plenty of safe places to grab it, and you can like do that kind of stuff. It has enough stability to it to grab things without being too careful, moving the arms around. You might find some small things that will fall off or that can be knocked off, but most of the important stuff is fairly well secured, which is a pretty nice trick for something this large and this heavy as well. It is able to get into kind of an action pose, which many of the mechs can't. Oh, it does not have working knees. Sorry, everybody who needs knees. This does not have working knees. Nothing I can do about that. Nothing I can do to help with that. Not a whole lot that LEGO can do about that either. Not with something that weighs this much. Yes, we got the Titan mech, the Zane's Titan mech, which had the knees, which are really nice. This is much heavier and much more complex and will do a lot more than the Zane's Titan mech. You cannot directly compare. Well, you can, but it's not fair to directly compare those and say, well, okay, Zane's mech had knees, and that proves that LEGO can do knees on a big mech, and therefore this is a terrible design and should be scrapped, and the designer should be fired. No. So I just got it into kind of a walking pose, and you can move the arms about. You have just the standard kind of articulation that you would expect, honestly. There's a new piece which I will show you how that works right here for the hip that allows this to be much smaller. Don't expect to do anything too crazy with the articulation for this, but it does have double ratcheted joints down here for the ankles to go forward just ever so slightly, back a bunch. I don't know if there's anything you can do with that extra articulation there as far as posing, but there is something that is useful there. You've got the ability for the ankles to swing back and forth just a little bit to help them to stay on the ground. You can splay the legs out and in. The legs will move forward and back as well. You already saw up here, you've got plenty of motion at the shoulders. You've got this here. You've got the ability to rotate here as well. And then you have these inner arms as well. These are on a ball joint and also have an additional ratcheted joint to the inside. The the wrist is able to rotate, and the little fingers on there. I'll try to get you in closer on that as well. You can see it better over on this side, the side that holds the sword. So that's what the Technic pin is there for, and these just kind of are more for aesthetics than anything, to make it look like the hand is actually grabbing there, but all of this can rotate around, which is nice. And then, you know, you've got the elbow joint inside of there and the ball joint at the shoulder, which gives you a decent range of motion, but nothing great. And one thing that's not particularly great here in terms of how it looks is the head. At least in my opinion, it's just very, very tiny and doesn't do a whole lot for me. But, you know, it's okay. It kind of works in with some of the other features, which I'll show you very, very soon. Don't worry. What I'm most happy with in the design, though, is just beneath the head. So the inner part of the shoulders and all of the body, the main torso here, how that is shaped up is very good. It's not too heavy, not too thick, but, you know, you get some good genuine shaping in there. It doesn't just rely on the stickers. There are a bunch of stickers, but I feel like most of them can be left off and you wouldn't lose too much. There are these inner pauldrons as well right here, which are actually on joints, but they stay just out of the way and they provide some shaping to musculature, or kind of, you know, pseudo musculature, as opposed to being the standard movable pauldrons, which these parts end up being. They give you a little bit of room to move them out of the way for posing, you know, so you can get more range of motion out of the shoulders, the main shoulders themselves. This can be spun around. You got the sword there. The tracks down here can move, but what is all that for? Well, let's get into that now. Let me go ahead and pull these shoulders right on out. They're a little bit tough in there, but I'm just gonna knock that out. And then down here, I got these legs, which are also on clips. They're fairly secure, but they can be popped off. They can be popped off, so you can actually use that if you want to for some of your articulation, if you can come up with a static pose that works for it. But you're not going to want to have these loose. And then this reconnects inside of there to form new pseudo knees. Bring this forward, and here's the Kai mech now as its own separate thing. This thing for Zane is somewhat inspired by one of the Raiders, one of the Sonic Raiders, and the canopy just comes up a little bit there. Pop that off. There we go. Stick these two together, and this becomes a thing. And then finally, I forget which side which of these goes on, but if I did it incorrectly, I'm sure I'll hear about it. But either way works perfectly fine, whether you want to have the miniature one towards you or the big one towards you. And that's it. So now I've got 4 completely separate playable toys. Cole's vehicle, I think, is the weakest of the 4, and I mean, there's going to have to be a weakest among them. But this one, I kind of like some of the stuff, what's going on with the front of it. I like how low slung it is. It feels like a mining machine. You know, it really kind of makes sense to have that low overall stance to it, and the front end works for me. These are not actually connected to the wheels at all, so they're not going to turn on their own, but I'm okay with that. I think this used more stickers than it needed for the surface area that is covered with stickers. Some of that could have been maybe greebled in, you know, with some physical detail instead. I really love this canopy piece being recolored into just a generic color, the most generic trans dark brown, or trans black as we often call it. But this seems to fall apart for me in the back, not literally but figuratively. It's just super open, and these sides are on ratcheted joints, so they kind of move around a little bit. I'm also not a big fan of using the just hard plastic for wheels, although these aren't as bad as some have been in the past. I very much like that you can reuse the clips on the back to hold on to Cole's weapons back there, though, so that's good. Looking at Zane's vehicle, frankly, the first thing that I see is that I need to do some more work with this new studio setup to make it so that you can better see white objects against the white background. I will definitely need to work on that. Apologies for that. Hopefully you can see things well enough here, but this vehicle feels like a tank properly. You know, it's got some good heft to it. and the tracks work just fine. Of course, it's repetitive and annoying having to put individual track links together, but once it's done, it's done. You got kind of the RAM bar there on the front, and you can lift these up if you want something to be a little bit different. I could easily see customizing this to add something on there or connecting some extra pins under here. It just kind of asks for you to do some modifications to make it better. Again, that same canopy piece used here. Got a spot for a WooBot over here. It can be used for shooting things. I'll show you that more closely later on. These, I don't know what they are, but you can turn them flat like that, or you can bring them up like that, or you can do it 1 and 1. I don't know, air brakes, spoiler, whatever it's supposed to be. I like them to be just up a little bit, and this makes for an effective toy. Now, the treads are very loose, and it's been suggested by some viewers while I was building this that you take one link out. If it makes you feel better, take a link out, and it'll be a lot tighter. But the way this is designed, those will not fall off, and this allows this to work, I think, pretty well and easily, even on a hard surface. Without having a cheater wheel. So this has no cheater wheel inside of it. There are tires used for the sprockets just for internal friction, but nothing is connecting to the ground here. That's good. And then again, there are clips on the back which you can use to hold on to minifig accessories. My apologies for leaving the shurikens in Zane's hands for now. That's just laziness because I'm going to need to show them to you in a minute anyway. Jay gets a flyer, and this one doesn't have a whole lot of bulk to it, but what I like about this is when you get into playing with it, you can move those wings around. Since they are on ball joints, I think that the head of the mech is integrated pretty decently well into the nose there. I also appreciate the use of the dual banner, or the availability of the dual banners that are printed there. One is facing each direction. Focus, there we go, there's that one. And this one over here, and what I like most here is just the fact that you can turn these around, so like you can, I don't know, fold them back this way. This looks more like something that we've gotten for Zane in the past for the movie. Just his lightning fighter. I feel just I think is the closest to that. It doesn't have all the spikes and everything, but you can kind of angle these back. You can angle them forward, as I mentioned. You can flip these wings front to back or side to side so that the shorter edge is facing forward. The banners can be angled down like that. Yeah, it's just, there's some fun stuff that you can do with this. As a matter of fact, you can even put it into kind of a Vulture Droid sort of pose for landing. If I can get this to... Oh, there it is. I just need to lean it forward a little bit more. And it stands up, just gives you those options, and that's cool. And then finally, Kai's mech that forms the core, the body of the combo mech, is solid in and of itself and is a very good toy just by itself. It has all the articulation that it needs, although it does not have articulating knees per se. You can fold them part way to get a little bit of additional temporary posing, especially with the help of additional pieces from the outside to help with balance and everything. But for the most part, you're going to expect this to just use its hip joints and ankle joints, which do have plenty of friction and enough articulation to get it into some action poses here. And I need to show you those hips now that we've got this a little bit simpler in its setup. You can rotate this ball joint here. It can actually be turned around the opposite way to get you a little bit of different amount of articulation out of this. So this can just be generally reconfigured a bit to allow you to reach in different ways, which is good. But most importantly, you got the sword over here that can come across and do some slashing attacks with it. I think all of this gets closed up pretty nicely in this form. You can actually bring that down further, but I wanted to have it look like it didn't have quite as flat of a head. So I wanted it to, just have a little bit more shape as viewed from the front. But let's check out these hips. There's a new piece right here. And I'm just going to pull this off so that you can see that a half of the old large ratcheted joint is attached on there. I'm going to pull that off after removing the plug or the key that was holding it together. This here, this black piece, is the new part. It holds two of the inner ratchets, which are existing parts just from the existing system. So that allows it to plug into some Technic pin holes. But then this accepts the inside of this, and that is brilliant. Because it does this. it does this, and it does it really, really well, and simply allows everything to be nicely centered up, gives you a double ratchet joint. This locks things in. You can attach other different types of designs out here to make this look different. Just feels like this is going to be super useful. And look at the range of motion there in a small space. You know, if the axis is in the correct location, and this splays open. Now there's a limiter right there. That bar is there as a limiter so that when this is in combo mode, the legs won't completely splay apart. The biggest weakness here is the fact that you're still only attaching to a single one of the gray piece. All right, so you've got the two ratchets in there which do their job, but you've only got a single one of these. That you're not doubling this up. It is possible for larger mechs to double up a joint like this, and that doesn't happen here. And it's right about at the edge, I want to say, of what's reasonably possible. I think this could have been attached a little bit better inside of the thigh here, because some of the movement, if I hold this together, some of the movement is inside of there, some of that bending. So I think it's right about at the edge of what's possible in terms of weight and leverage on it when this is in its ultra combo form. But I mean, the shaping of these legs for something that doesn't have knees is very, very nice, I think. And it's super convenient how it works. You know, the fact that you can just disconnect all of this, it folds up towards the inside, kind of kicks itself like that, and then these become the connection points to connect into the lower legs. Like the engineering, I think, is really user friendly and more than sufficient from a structural perspective. And it looks really nice. I think everything about this looks nice, except for the arms. The arms, you know, could use just a little bit of bulking up in here. The bad guys get a build as well. It's nothing too significant. You can imagine that these are massable in universe. I could just see a swarm of these being used. They are flyers. So this flies around. Just imagine it is a repulsor lift type of craft. As I understand it, there are some digital shorts out to kind of help explain this series, and it shows this being used in a different way, like on the ground as a walker. But I definitely want to see this as more of a flyer, or at least as a hover vehicle. It's got a couple of the stud shooters on the sides, the second generation version of them that actually doesn't shoot studs. Forgive me, it shoots tiles. I'm gonna have trouble getting over that change of function there. This is a new piece, I believe, for 2022. I haven't seen that exactly. It's kind of a riff on the Nexo Knight upgraded mech front piece, and it just has a different shape and some different different connection capabilities with the 4 studs on the front. Lots of gunmetal gray on this, and you see this has the Mixel's ball joints all around it. So if you wanted to use this as a walker, it would be easy enough, and you can rotate those around, or rather flip them around side to side. I tried flipping the rear ones as well, but it turns out just flipping the fronts, I think, works the best to get this into more of a walker looking thing. You know, then these just look like they would be really powerful, and they can come down from above and be very dangerous and possibly even pierce through some armor. You know, like they could be made of some super high-tech feature synthetic deep stone or something. You know, that's kind of a cool look. I want to see when these are flipped. I prefer to see it as a flyer or a repulsor lift craft, and like this, it looks more like a walker or a jumper. The minifigures for this in-between season use the dual molded cowl pieces, which look good, but the graphic design on the prints for the torsos, hips, and legs is relatively flat. I prefer the ones that have a little bit more depth. This is done with intent, and it's done with good consistency from one to the next. It's just not my personal preference. I really like all these different colors, though, like getting the light yellow color for one arm. Let's get the other arm as well, please. Got the silver there. You got the flame yellowish orange over here. You know, different interesting colors of hands as well. It's pretty cool. But yeah, just generally, these aren't my favorites in terms of their design, but I think they are pretty much well done for what they are. The alternate faces and the main faces as well. I did not mean for this to be all the orange and black, but it's how it turned out. I actually specifically don't like how Cole turned out this time. I like the commitment to the orange and black. That's striking, The torso is okay, but the legs definitely don't work for me with that dark tan color. The weapon is good, got the orange colored katana. The bad guys though, Snake Warriors, very good, especially the one over on the right, which is called a Boa Destructor. I like that a lot. The reversed color scheme for the headpiece, very nice. Well, reversed color scheme for just about everything here, except for the legs. The legs are actually shared between the two. But yeah, it's nice to get the extra hands. You know, the iron fists, and then also the pauldron piece there, and just that color scheme works out really well. Good reuse of the same headpiece that they've used now 3 times, actually 4, if you consider, you know, the reversal there, and good torso prints for those as well. I like everything about both of those guys on the right. And the last figure that's not really a figure, I call it a half a figure, is a Woobot. So those tiles in there, incidentally, are iridescent translight blue, which is very nice with the opalescence to it, and that's a printed 2x2 tile for the Woobot head. These are the leftover pieces, and there are some interesting things to see here. First of all, look at that selection of katanas. Is that not beautiful? I think that's beautiful. These are extras of the iridescent translight blue, very nice little tile pieces. And then this was actually a mistake. So it's very rare, I have found, after reviewing thousands of Lego sets, it's very rare for them to get a part wrong. But this was included a 1x8 tile instead of a 1x6 plate. Just, again, a rare mistake, but I did want to point it out. And these are just extras, period. I'm not the only person in my Twitch, when I was doing this live on Twitch, in the chat, had a couple other people who mentioned having these left over after building the thing. They do show up in the official part inventory, but they don't seem to go anywhere unless multiple people have missed it. I went back and checked myself, and others have checked as well. But I think that's a mistake, but it might be a collective mistake amongst a bunch of fans. And then this is the sticker sheet. Like I mentioned, there are a lot of stickers in this. However, again, I think that most of them are not critical to the look, and you can leave them off if you hate stickers. I paid $90 for this, 90 US. And yeah, it does come with 1,100 pieces, but $90 is a lot of money. And I think if this was more static and didn't have as much going on with it, even for its size, I wouldn't be 100% comfortable with that, just on the basis of amount of stuff that's here. However, I really feel like there is more here than the sum is greater than the total of the parts. The whole thing together is so much more, because not only is each individual build, each individual major portion of it playable in and of itself, and at least decent, between decent and very, very good, but you put it all together, it makes for something that's rather large. I also want to talk about the back of this package here, but first, I mentioned size. I've got to bring something else into the frame for the sake of comparison here. I'm sure you want to know this. You want to know how big this thing is? So, Voltron, the Voltron set is big. I think it's the biggest mech that Lego has ever made. You can say that, I think maybe the Monkey Kid Warrior mech might be able to get to a higher point if you move everything up, but I mean, just look at the head, like look at the actual height of this thing, the height of where all the mass is. You know, this is not that much smaller than this, and it's certainly way more playable. The size of this is much greater than I expected based on what I saw in the pictures, and I'm very impressed with that. I'm very impressed that it is as playable as it is for its size. The construction techniques work well enough. You know, it could be better, definitely could have more stability than this, but it works well enough that I'm not constantly fearing that this thing will fall over on me everywhere. The biggest problem is just the splaying of the legs, the fact that it can splay the legs a little bit more easily than I would like, but I can still at least get it into a moving looking pose, and I'm not too scared about that, even though I'm on a very slippery surface here, which might be a little bit unrealistic for some folks, but I think that a toy should be able to handle that. And I'm just super happy with so much of this. I'm trying to hold back my enthusiasm because I don't want to just gush about it and nonstop, because you know, you're not here for that. You're here for an actual critique, but there's just not a whole lot that I have to say bad about this. The things that I don't like about it, I feel, are due to compromises that were important to make for a set that's intended to be a 9+ set. It's still designed for kids. Now that's higher than normal for Lego stuff, but it's still designed for kids to not only play with, but be able to put together in the first place. Overall, I'm very happy with this, and I actually very much like the back of the box on this one. Some of the others I've complained about, but this totally makes sense because this just provides a very, very clear and honest look at what the mech looks like all together in one, and it sets it out and lets you see immediately as soon as you turn that around. Like here, okay, yeah, it's a mech, but you got all this stuff in the background that's trying to, make the entire scene look more exciting. Here you can very clearly see, even though there are the background art panels in there, you can clearly see that there are individual things, and then this just is so crystal clear. This is very nice, and they got the numbers that refer to the individual ones. Like, this is done well. This is super clean product photography on packaging done right. I think much better than on some of the smaller ones. Don't usually care about packaging, but I did want to comment about that since I have said a bunch of negative stuff about some of the ones from this season also. All in all, if you like what this looks like, and if you think that it feels like a decent value to you, I think that you will love it. I think you'll be super, super happy with it. I certainly am. I'm going to have a lot of trouble getting rid of this one. I don't know if I will be able to get rid of this one. At the very least, I want to keep it around for quite some time, just for the sake of personal inspiration for custom stuff in the future or other displays that I might want to do. It speaks to me in very positive ways. Let me know what you think about this set based on what you've seen of it, or if you have experience with it yourself. Feel free to use the comments section, but I'm going to continue working on bringing you more reviews, doing more builds over on Twitch, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.